You open the banking app on a Thursday afternoon and stare at the screen for a few seconds without understanding what you're seeing. The paycheck came in 12 days ago. You didn't do anything unusual this month, didn't travel, didn't buy anything big. But the balance is where it always is. That number you know well by now, the one that shows up every time you think this month was going to be different. So you close the app, not because you solved anything, but because you can't stand looking at it anymore. That movement, open, look close, says more about you than any budget spreadsheet ever could. It's not laziness, it's not lack of discipline, it's that looking at that number hurts in a way you can't quite explain. And the only way your brain found to deal with that pain was to cut the signal, turn off the display, get on with the day. And the day goes on. It always goes on. Nathan is 33 years old. He works for a county government agency, 6 years in. Has job security, has benefits, has the certainty that on the first of every month the money is going to land, and every month it lands, and every month it disappears. Not all at once. That would be easy to track. It disappears gradually in small decisions that seem reasonable in the moment. The lunch that cost more because he was tired and didn't want to walk to the cheaper place. The Friday delivery that became a habit because the week was brutal. The subscription he forgot was still active. The installment payment on something he barely remembers buying anymore, but that shows up every month, taking a piece. They're fragments, crumbs, decisions that, taken one by one, each make sense, and together build an architecture of escape he never consciously chose to construct. Nathan's problem isn't that he spends too much. Nathan's problem is that he spends against pain. That has a name. In behavioral psychology, it's called dysfunctional emotional regulation, when behavior doesn't serve to resolve the problem, but to silence the discomfort the problem produces. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler, Nobel laureate in 2017, spent decades documenting how human beings make financial decisions that completely contradict their own long-term interests, not out of stupidity, but because the human brain was not built to deal with abstract futures when there's immediate discomfort available to be relieved right now. Delayed gratification costs something. Always has. Nathan is not the exception to this rule. He is the rule. But there's a layer that goes beyond standard behavioral psychology, a layer that finance books rarely touch. Nathan's stability, that same stability he defended when he chose the government job, when he signed the contract, when he decided this was the right path, created in him a silent pact with dissatisfaction. It's not that he's miserable at work. It's more subtle than that. It's that he knows at a level he can't quite verbalize or admit that there's a gap between who he is at work and who he imagined he would be. That gap produces a chronic, low-grade, constant discomfort, like background static, that you learn to ignore, but that never fully goes away. And that discomfort needs somewhere to go. Spending is the easiest, most socially acceptable, most immediate place he found. This isn't weakness. It's emotional engineering. It's Nathan's nervous system trying to maintain equilibrium using the tools it has. What happens then is a predictable sequence. Difficult Monday at work, a meeting that shouldn't have happened, a colleague who took credit for what was yours, that feeling that the entire day was wasted in a ritual that means nothing. On the way out, he walks through the mall. Not because he needed anything, but because walking through there has a texture of possibility that work doesn't have. The store has new things. The restaurant menu has things he hasn't tried yet. The movie playing has something he can still discover. And everything costs a little. Each individual thing costs a little. And the relief each small purchase produces lasts just long enough to feel worth it. Until he gets home. Until he opens the app. Until he closes the app again. Nathan isn't buying products. Nathan is buying pauses from pain. And the cruelest part of all this is that he knows it at a diffuse, not fully articulated level. He has that feeling that something is wrong, not with the budget, but with himself, that there's a disconnection he can't name. that the money disappears, but the exhaustion doesn't go with it, that he earns enough to live well, but not enough to feel well. And that difference between living well and feeling well is exactly the terrain where the trap was built. Before we continue, I need to show you something I built after understanding exactly what we're talking about here. It's called the Free Your Mind Kit, 3 tools that work together. The ebook has 35 pages of real financial psychological diagnosis. It's not a savings tip, it's a map of the invisible patterns that trap men with stable salaries. The Cost of Stability Calculator is an interactive tool. You enter your numbers and it shows you the real cost of not acting, in wealth, in time, in deferred freedom. And the Free Your Mind series is 3 audio tracks of 7 to 12 minutes, made to listen to when you wake up or before you sleep, working on identity, value, and action where knowledge alone can't reach. The 3 complement each other. The ebook creates intellectual awareness, the calculator creates emotional awareness, the audios work on identity. It's not a course, no subscription, lifetime access, everything for under $7. The link is in the description when you're ready. Back to what we were saying. There's a distinction that needs to be made here, because without it, everything you're about to hear is going to sound like another piece of advice to cut your coffee budget. The distinction is between symptomatic spending and structural spending. Structural spending is what you spend on the real necessities of your life: rent, food, transportation, healthcare. You can optimize it, you can trim here and there, but it has a flaw. There's a minimum below which you can't go without genuinely compromising your quality of life. Symptomatic spending is a different animal. It's spending that serves as anesthesia. And the defining characteristic of symptomatic spending is that it has no flaw, because it's not serving a need, it's serving an emotional state. And emotional states have no defined limit. The pain is proportional not to the size of the financial problem, but to the distance between where you are and where you feel you should be. The greater that distance, the more the system seeks relief. The more the spending grows. What does this mean in practice? It means raising Nathan's salary won't solve Nathan's problem. It's already been tested. He got 2 raises in the last 5 years. Every time the salary went up, the spending went up with it. Not in a planned way, but naturally, the way water always finds its level. Behavioral economist Sendil Mullainathan calls this a scarcity mindset. Not the scarcity of money itself, but the mental state that scarcity produces, which persists even when money increases, because the scarcity Nathan feels isn't financial. It's of purpose, it's of identity, it's of a version of himself he still doesn't know how to build. And now we get to the most uncomfortable point of what you're going to hear today. Not the hardest to understand, the hardest to sit with. You've probably already suspected something like this. You've already had that thought, maybe on a long drive, maybe on a Sunday afternoon that went by too slowly. That thought that the job you have isn't exactly the job you'd choose if you were starting over. And you push that thought under the rug, not because you're foolish, but because you don't know what to do with it. Because the bills exist. The pension is being built. A few more years to the milestone. It would be crazy to walk away now. That resistance, just a few more years, my situation is different, my pension is already guaranteed, isn't strategy. It's the defense mechanism of someone who is afraid. Afraid that if they actually stop to look at what they're feeling, what they see will be too large to ignore. And they're right, it will be. The problem is that the cost of not looking is also large. It's just that this cost is paid in installments, in small daily doses over decades, until you reach the end and realize that what you built was stability, not freedom, security, not meaning. Nathan is not a victim of his job. Nathan is a human being who made rational decisions within the parameters he had. But the parameters have changed, and decisions that were rational before may not be rational now. There's a third layer to this story, and it's the layer most people skip. When you stay on a path that doesn't satisfy you, the cost isn't only financial, the cost is inversion. There's a version of you that would have developed had you made different choices, skills you would have built, risks you would have taken, worlds you would have explored. That version no longer exists, not because time passed, time always passes, but because every day you spend energy in work that doesn't move you is a day you didn't spend building what you could have built. The equation isn't just about money, it's about life not lived. Philosopher Viktor Frankl, a survivor of Nazi concentration camps and the founder of logotherapy, wrote that a human being can endure almost any how as long as they have a why. Nathan's problem isn't the how. He knows how to go to work, knows how to complete the tasks, knows how to survive the month. The problem is that the why got increasingly vague. And when the why disappears, spending fills the space. Because buying is a form of having a why. It's short, it's shallow, but it's immediate. And the immediate, when you're exhausted, always wins. But there is a way out that isn't recklessness, that isn't quitting everything overnight, that doesn't involve destroying what you've built to start from zero. The way out begins with brutal honesty about what's happening. Not with the budget, with yourself, with the question you avoid. What are you trying not to feel when you spend? What is the money buying that can't be bought? This isn't therapy, it's diagnosis. You don't need to solve the problem today. You need to see the problem clearly enough to stop acting as if it doesn't exist. The second part is separating symptomatic spending from structural spending surgically, not with guilt, with curiosity. At the end of the month, look at every purchase you didn't need to make and ask, what was I feeling when I did this? You'll start to see a pattern. There's always a pattern, and when you can see the pattern clearly, you have a choice. Before you can see the pattern, you only have autopilot. The third part is the hardest, beginning to build a why that doesn't need spending to exist. I'm not talking about Instagram purpose, I'm talking about a real direction. Even if it's small, even if it's uncertain, that points towards something beyond next Friday. A project, a skill, a contribution, anything that when you're doing it, time moves differently. When you have that, spending starts to lose its urgency. It doesn't disappear, but it loses urgency. Because the space it was filling now has something in it. Nathan, after 4 months of honestly looking at this cycle, made a discovery that seems simple but isn't. He realized that every time he had a long, empty Sunday afternoon, he'd end up on the delivery app or the shopping site. Not because he was hungry or needed anything, but because the empty Sunday afternoon was exactly when the static got loudest, when the distance between who he was and who he imagined he'd be became hardest to ignore. So he started using that time differently. Not to work more, that would be more of the same, but to build something that was only his, a small thing, no audience, no immediate payoff, that he did because he wanted to. And when he did that, he found he didn't need the delivery. That Sunday had a different texture, that the following week started from a different place. The money didn't fix itself overnight, but some started to remain, not because he earned more, because he started to need less of the relief that spending produced, because part of the emptiness that spending was filling started to be filled by something else. This isn't a financial solution, it's a life solution, and that's exactly why it works when the others don't. You made it here. That already says something about you. Most people open a video about money and close it within 3 minutes. You stayed, you listened, you're looking for something real. So I want to show you something I created specifically for people at this point, who know what they want, but still feel like the month ends without the most important things having changed. It's the Free Your Mind Kit. 3 tools in one system. The ebook explains the 5 psychological patterns keeping you stuck, not as theory, as a diagnosis of your real situation. The cost of stability calculator opens directly in your browser. No app, no registration. You enter your numbers and it shows you exactly how much wealth, time, and freedom you've deferred. It's not a motivational number, it's the real number. And the audio series, 3 recordings of 7 to 12 minutes, works on your identity, your sense of value, and your capacity for action. Listen when you wake up or before sleep. They work where words can't reach. The link is in the description when you're ready. And if you're not ready yet, subscribe to Mind of Value. Turn on notifications. This conversation doesn't end here.